Hi, how the hell are you? So I've been wanting to start the series where I essentially discuss my current knowledge in relationship with understanding autism, my autism, ADHD, so I guess ADHD. So I figured the best place to start that is to pick up the beginning, or at least some point, and then talk about everything else, because it just might be hard hearing it, seeing it, if you're not with the shits. So I gotta start and build the foundation. So I guess with that, we're gonna be starting at this graph that I found online, which I feel like talks about the experiences of being autistic, or perceived via more so diagnostic criteria, not wholly, but it just gives that vibe mainly. And then this other picture I feel like best describes the branches of the internal presentations, or the internal experience. And just to clarify and reiterate, because that picture is going to be in the atypical lens, which is apparently, according to this website, 1 out of 54 people are diagnosed with autism. And of those 1 out of 54 people in that population, 75% would present as atypical, which is odd because that's not the minority. So, which leads me to think that there's just, well, if it's a spectrum in the first place, then how is anything typical or atypical? It's just societal norms and other factors being overlooked once again. So do what you will with this shit. This is just the presentation I rock with. It appears to be atypical, or the what most women relate to in terms of the symptomologies or the lifetime experiences. So busy blah. But to double down and reiterate of the reiteration, that was correct. There's 1 in 54 from that number. So apparently the difference is that atypical, you won't need to identify with all of the classic signs of regular autism. You would, in theory, relate to enough of the criteria to be on board, but there's a lot of areas where your symptoms are mild, or it's not as oppressive in your everyday life. Not saying that it can't be, or you can't fluctuate, but generally speaking, like if there's 5 domains, all 5 are lit on fire for typical presenting autism. And then with atypical, you could still be struggling with these, but 3 of these may be heightened and the other 2 are like a lot lower. And if you couldn't tell from all this dissection, there are indeed levels to this shit, and we'll get to the levels and break that down. But I just want to preface, again, I know how much prefacing could someone do, but with the research, and when you're looking for answers and try to figure out how these symptoms or traits, more traits definitely, present in your manifestation of everyday life, it's going to be split into gender, at least with the literature or what people are going to tell you, saying how this is how AFABs present and what they do, and this is how AMAPs present. Which could very well be the case. But since all of this research is new, like, people didn't think you could have it for AFABs until 2013 in America, like, come on now. So this could also just be an extension of gender as a social construct, and therefore our perception, or lens of seeing these differences will be inherently rooted to the construct or patriarchy or XYZ. Which leads me back into how odd that it's typical when it's 75% of the, like, what? So same shit, like, maybe because, or maybe not, because then I forget the research exactly, but I know enough to where they're trying to say where it's not, first of all, left and right brain doesn't exist. I'm assuming neither just full masculine or full feminine brain, and it's the fluctuations of those differences. But anyways, it's not 100% be all in that sense. So what may be actually happening is that this is the only way to see it, because this population is experiencing a similar, if not the same, type of reality that they have to live through. Like the reality of being a woman in a patriarchal society, having to be forced to mask at a higher level degree than your male counterparts would have to. And that's why the last video got cut off. I'm not quite sure what my point was after that, because I feel like it was stated. But to wrap this series, or the introductory of this series up, let's talk about the levels. So autism is being understood to be divided into 3 levels, and which would be, on paper, if you're looking at it, it's going to say high functioning, low functioning. But if you're in the know of the community, it's already being, the nomenclature is changing to high masking, or high support needs, low support needs, low masking, because that's more in tune with how we're interfacing with, people in the ether, and it's not at a initial deficit approach, or like symptom versus trait. That you can see the difference in the terminology here, right? So to break it down, level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 would be known for its high masking and low support needs, while the further you go down in the levels, it would change to lower masking but higher support needs. Like if you're getting to 2 treading to 3, an individual might have like not even the ability to, I guess, take care of themselves, so they need that care, and it could be all 5 of those domains, it could be 2 of those domains, but it's generally expected that the hands-on experience as a caretaker is going to be way more hands-on than you could be for a level 1, because level 1s get missed all the time. Like they don't even know they have it, because they appear to have their shit together, when in reality it's more so like you've been playing life on hard mode with no tutorial, but you're faking because you can't let people know you don't know the tutorial because you just can't. One TikTok account or licensed professional that I've come across recently who's talking about it and the way that I resonate, and it's just not the typical norm of the information you're gonna get. Like, I was to the point where I was like, am I the only one who's thinking this shit other than YouTubers I watch? But this creator, talking about levels exclusively, at least for 1 and 2, there's more of a fluctuating scale into it, because especially post burnout or just life demands and stressors, or the masking is like really killing you, then the cognitive processes might decline to the point of operating now at a 2. Like, oh, you're no longer a 1, bro. Like, and one of their theories, which I fuck with, is that to even operate at a 1 would to potentially mean you have to juggle the autism on top of ADHD on top of OCD, because that's just what is required to operate at that frequency, which is very interesting. But alas, lots of theories, lots of sliding scale systems, lots of comparisons between past discoveries and new avenues of approach. But I'll let that be the intro. See how this fares. I'm still going to go on with the series regardless if I'm talking to an empty void. But I'm going to start breaking down the other pictures individually so I can visualize how to talk about it, make sure I'm talking about everything, and make sure it's still interconnected. So, thank you for watching. Like, share if you're even still here, if it helped and resonated, and I hope you can see a little slice of yourself in me, mate. Because you're not alone. Hi there. This is episode 2 of my autism series, where I'm breaking down my knowledge in relationship to learning this material, and myself, inversely. Last episode was introductory, talking about what the gist is. This is going to be breaking down one of the pictures I had posted, and starting the order and chain of what I talk about information-wise. And this episode is based on emotional sensitivities, rooted in situational mutism, hyperreactivity, meltdowns, and shutdowns. So starting off, situational mutism, or selective mutism, or periods of non-speaking, or you see the nomenclature is not quite clear yet on how to be inclusive of everyone yet. However, as per one of the symptoms of autism, atypical or not, in communication, there may be deficits in verbal communication. So you may be non-speaking most of the time. You may be more of what is a selective or situational, which means you have the capability of speech at certain areas, or sometimes not. Like, it's just random, kind of. It's more of a response type thing. But it's tricky. It's tricky as a bitch. For me personally, I'm one of the few who struggle with this situational or selective mutism. And I didn't realize I did until I had a partner, because, you know, with a partner, especially one that you live with, a lot of your traits get known if they were not known, because you're sharing that space and intimacy, that lens of expectation, and trying to maintain a healthy cohesion. So, in comparison from this relationship, and why it took until the age of 24, 25 with this relationship to see, I'm gonna break it down for you. So in my case, I guess I'm on that Aquarius loner fucking vibe, bro, that fucking existing in subspace, just battling mind demons. I feel like that was my shtick. Not even what I was trying to emulate, it's just what my life circumstance was. So I felt very much alone. You know, I'm going from, to keep it general for right now until we break it down, an eggshell relationship with one parent versus a complete almost freedom with another, and moving all the fucking time with either one of those parents. So there's no consistency of an external source to pick up on my past behavioral aspects, merely speculations, if from the parent themselves. But I can remember in hindsight, even though I was alone a lot, like, I had a general good scope of what maybe I was feeling, or I don't know. I could remember from high school, definitely at least, that even if there was no one to talk to, like, I wasn't working yet and I was at home, had like nothing to fucking do, had no friends, no type of nothing, no internet, basically a fucking cave person. And my day was rough at school, I would just be quiet still. It's like I had to be quiet all day, but then I still remained quiet because there was no new energy to bounce off of. So it's just a forever shell of bracing, essentially, which I didn't realize, but I kind of did. And when I mean that I kind of did, it's like I would almost play that game, a game with myself, kind of be like, oh wow, it took me until I got home plus like another 2 hours until I realized that, oh, I haven't talked yet. So it would be like almost a fun game to play to see how long I can go without talking. But a game in the sense of trappedness, because it's like I also was unable to do that. Like, even if I wanted to talk, the only source I had was trying shit out like a game, because life feels like a game with no tutorial and you're constantly trying shit out, especially if you have no reference or scope. So at certain points I'd be like, oh, my body's like hella fucking stiff, or like I didn't realize my jaw's been so tight for like the whole goddamn day or something. So game as in checkpoint marks of like, oh, that was longer than last time, interesting, might want to keep note of that. Fast in the future, but not now. So flash forward, there we go. This would affect me at work too, as I would start working throughout my high school career. Even till now, I would struggle with that in certain moments, but depending on the job, like, you can get away with this, like, oh, fuck. So now breaking down jobs, like, first doing stuff like grocery marts, like your ShopRites, your other equivalents and stuff like that. There's a whole script. You're supposed to do the script. I never did the fucking script. I was always leaning on my side or something, because it's like I can't stand that long. And I didn't do all the routines because it just, which is funny because you would expect the routine, but the routine felt so fake, and then it didn't work with how it was actually people would interface with me in real time. That's why people think we're fucking bots. And then when I was outside of grocery marts, because that was a hellhole for me and it bled me dry spiritually, emotionally, mentally, even as a youngin', I went to the food service. Anybody hear that? That was the sound of doom, mutual understanding, and that was the wrong choice. But that's service industry, so if anyone's in it, then it's we all experience it, because someone's got to do the fucking job, right? So, exactly. So with food industries, oh my god, just being a food runner to server to food trucker to chef to fucking all these different branches and trying shit out and low-key like sucking at all of them. Not to just sound like a complainer of issues, but like, you know, this is human rights talk. I know you probably started this video on to get the situational selective mutism. I'm telling you about it on my relation to it, the diagnostic depiction of it, the societal issues at large that connect with it, and why it reinforces it throughout your entire life stages if you have no guide. But that's just work domain. Like, that might be different for family or XYZ, but like I said earlier, that was more under the radar in those terms, you know, so it would be seen more at work or other places before the home. But I did get all over the place. So let's wind it back a little bit just to talk about the actual feeling of it when it feels like going selectively mute. Well, it feels like barbed wire around the neck. It feels like you can't speak. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Usually if you can, it's because the question on the other side is that dire, or like you feel it enough in you, like you're trying to do it, but it will cost you energy points. You can, just like how with the flat affect and that autistic people often depict, and it's because we can tell the amount of energy it moves to move certain aspects of our face, then it's the same thing there. So yes, talking will cost those extra energy points, and it just, oh my god, I just try not to fucking do it because I don't want my body shutting off and me not remembering anything at that point to full dissociation. But nowadays it's a lot easier, especially with my relationship, to someone who can see that and understand that, to where you can depict nonverbal communication cues to say like, hey, like, brain kaput at this moment in time, like, reconvene later. I need to start doing my self-soothing care for this particular moment of shutdown / selective mutism. And I have a video on it that's in my pin discussing about the warning signs of this, but you know, it's interconnected. So if you have the people that understand, then, or you understand, then you may be doing things that can get you out of these situations faster. But that's what it looks like in my relationship. That's what it looks like for the most part at work. What is, I mean, harder because I didn't even mention the fact that sometimes it's like you don't hear people or calling your name, or you don't know that they're like talking to you. It just sounds like everyone's talking out loud all the time. I don't know what the fuck is meant for me and what's not. So I'm keeping my business. But if you're like an awkward important member, like a chef or like a prep chef or something, and it's like everyone thinks that you're ignoring them, or especially if you go into that mute mode at a rush or something, then it's like you can't effectively communicate with anyone, really, not unless it's like, it's, I don't know, unless you can finesse it or something. Like, this shit is a bitch. But how that typically looks like in family, though, is that you have like split personality, or you must have some other kind of neurological thing going on there, because it's just so opposite of even in their own ideas of who you may be. But it'll be conceived as a behavioral fault rather than something neurological first and foremost. Especially in my case, that's how it's received. Like, my family had a nickname for me, Steve. And it's funny because it's like they had to make something in order as a parent to feel better about, like, yo, why is this shit so hard? So to conceptualize it, but then through that conceptualization, it felt like pathologizing. When I first heard that, I was like, wait, so you guys are aware I'm going through some shit and you just have a nickname for it? You're not gonna help me fucking figure this shit out? But, you know, we see both sides, but at the end of the day, that's just how it was perceived. And especially if you just stop talking, you're gonna be like, oh, this person is like so selfish or whatever, or they don't want to communicate after they probably did something that was perceived as the fuck up. Just lots of instances of where that mutism just really started being a pain in the ass to my own detriment, even. Non-exclusive to just shutdowns, periods, or like bordering a meltdown but quickly going to shut down, since that's my routine of like when an escalation happens in conversation for whatever reason. Then it's like, oh, escape route method, because if I stay here, I'm gonna start throwing and hitting shit. Oh, and then just to wrap up this long ass sequence to describe situational mutism, at least all these videos will have their own in-depth, which is the goal. But last tidbit, school, especially if you're an introvert, it's just not necessary. You can bleed through the cracks even more. Like, it's so easy to not fucking talk, especially if you don't have friends or people wondering like, hey, what's good with you? Why aren't you talking? Oh my god, it's a lot. I'll end it here. And just to double down on that, it's like, yes, everyone's going through it because the system fucking is broken and it sucks. But for us, I promise you, it's that much harder. Because y'all are still in it. The parents of our parents, even people now who can perform and be in those types of areas, perform and give, even though you guys will reach burnout, we all eventually will reach a burnout under these pretenses and contexts. We reach it a whole lot fucking faster, bro. That's why it almost feels like you're unemployable. Why 85% of autistics in America are apparently unemployed, even in countries where the lens is more up to date, only by like maybe 4 years, like the UK, that it's 75% or something like that. So it's still a societal issue at large. Part of the unemployment group, hello us, the disabled community, the shit is. And that's the difference. In just in case anyone's still here miraculously watching this and not under the pretense of being autistic or ADHD or neurodivergent in general, well, I'm glad you can be here, because we're talking about human behavior. Everyone's talking about, oh, we all do that. Yes, but in our case, we're doing it to heightened degrees. But these things are important because they're all societal issues and they're connected. So talking about customer service, like, it felt like giving your best customer service face, but I couldn't even do that. So everyone hated me. It feels like the workers, besides the cool ones I made friends with, but like the general workers, the higher ups, the people I'm giving the actual service to, like, it's a fucking awful time for everybody involved. And it's like a countdown, clock down of being fired, or leaving too early because you feel the boot is coming, or job hopping. And so that would come with high masking, and like, I didn't even realize it until I'm doing all this research now, but like that bracing feeling you feel going into these types of spaces and having to perform at an adequate level for long ass periods at a time that are just systematically not right, and everyone should be fighting for shorter fucking days. But god damn it, so it requires so much of the masking. And even if you don't know you're masking, it just feels like really good customer service. It feels like you embody that fakeness of a shell. Because that's what that is, bro. That's what we are. We're the fakeness of the shell, having to perform in this exact light and routine with no deviation. And it takes a fucking toll. Like, the general vibe is that for all of these connecting jobs, there's just one scripts, things that they wanted you to do. Fucking exactly how they want you to do it. No deviation. Because it's like, sometimes it's tricky, because on one hand, like, I don't understand shit until I see enough of it. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what is it that we do type thing? Like, once I see enough of it, shit makes sense, and all your little rules make sense to me. But even then, it's like, okay, well, some of those could be improved, or maybe can they just not apply to me? I can't replicate all these fucking things, but the moment I do one thing wrong, then it's like, oh, that's a sign. It's like, why can't you do that one thing? But then it's like in every one of these domains that has their separate nuances, because there's so many fucking steps to get right.